Video. My name is Robbie with Robbie's Reptiles. Today I wanted to talk to you guys about how to properly photograph your geckos. Now, when you are trying to sell and make a living off of crested gecko breeding, the number one most important thing is being able to show your product in the best quality possible. There are a lot of strategies to doing this, such as using a more sterile setup or having just a plain background. There's also having like a little studio setup. But mainly really what it comes down to is your own creativity and having a proper camera. So let's go ahead and just knock out the numbers for proper equipment out of the way. Now, some people do make a good living just using their phones. However, if you're trying to stand out and really be among the top dogs, if you will, you need to have a proper photo camera, and it doesn't have to be super expensive. The photo camera that I personally use is the Nikon D700. This is a 12, 15-year-old camera or something like that. But what's amazing about this is even if you don't know how to edit anything, the Nikon D700 will take perfect photos as straight JPEGs that you do not have to edit. I actually get my JPEGs and I put them onto my Google Drive and then I download them on my phone and I post them from Instagram. Maybe I'll add a little bit of contrast or saturation, but the camera does everything else itself. It's also very famous for having some of the most beautiful color science, but that's a whole different topic to get into, and frankly, this isn't my cinematography channel. When it comes to the lenses that I use, there are a lot of different choices that you can have. Some are honestly mind-boggling, the amount of choices that you have. But if you only had to have two, and let's say that your budget was less than $1,000, you can get the Nikon D700 for about $500 used on eBay if you get it from a reputable seller in Japan. The lenses that I use are the 28mm autofocus D series. It's really small, a pancake lens, and it has great autofocus, and it's an f2.8, which is pretty bright. So then for my macro photography or hatchling photography, I will use the 60mm Nikkor AF 2.8. It's also D series. The D series are quite sharp and they're well renowned in the Nikon world. The 28mm is what I usually use for my adults. The 28mm is going to run you about $150 I just saw on eBay. The 60mm I was able to get for $160. Now if you think about that, that is less than, let's say, $400 because I didn't go to college and I don't know how to do math. The 60mm and the 28mm are going to cost you a quarter of the price of a good breeding gecko. So very worth it. And then the D700 is about $500, so that's exactly $1,000, let's say. Again, I didn't go to college. So when it comes to something like lighting, your lighting is very important because that's actually the entire quality of the image. You don't want to just be taking a picture under your fluorescent lighting or your closet lighting. You want to have some sort of professional lighting setup. It doesn't even have to be expensive. This one right here cost me about $50 and I bought it 3 years ago, and it's still giving me use today. This is a $20 softbox with a $20 LED inside, and then let's say that the light stand was $10 too. And what I have is it's up here to the left at a 45-degree angle pointing down. So this allows me to use this entire backdrop, and I can actually grab different colored posters. So now what I like about this kind of setup is that I can grab any colored poster that I want and just place it right there. So now I have this nice top-down lighting and I can change out the backgrounds as much as I want. And then what I have already pinned to the wall is this kind of fake brick wrapping paper that I found for like $5. But when I'm doing all of my gecko photography, I'll just have a couple of these posters lined up and then I will switch them in and out as I go. And that one's gone forever. Now let's go ahead and go over my photo strategy. There's other people that like to set up a nice little studio, take pictures of the gecko, which is great. I think it's its own style in and of itself. But the problem is, I've found, is a lot of times my clients will ask, how big is the gecko? Can you send an unedited picture? Can you send it in this lighting? Can you send it in that lighting? My general strategy is to just hold the gecko in my hand and take the picture. So it's almost like I've become a full-time hand model, believe it or not. Now this knocks out a lot of birds with one stone. For one, whenever you take a photo of a gecko on your hand, usually in the photo, unless you are extremely savvy with editing, which some people are, some people aren't, but we're talking about the people just you're trying to get good quality photos and sell as much as possible. When you take a picture of a gecko on your hand, it's going to give a lot of things away. One, it's going to show you the size of the gecko relative to the average human hand. It's going to show that the colors are pretty true to life because skin texture is something that all humans subconsciously will be able to identify has been manipulated or is off in any way. So if you take a picture of a gecko and you don't do a lot of doctoring to the photo, well really you shouldn't do any doctoring, but now, that's a whole different topic of what's the difference between doctoring and editing, but we'll get into that later. When you're taking a picture, you don't want to over edit it. So being able to just take a picture of a gecko on your hand, add some saturation and contrast, and then people are going to be able to look at the photo, not only see the beautiful gecko, but they're also going to be able to see the skin texture and colors and pigments on your hand. And they're going to be able to tell if the photo has a shit ton of saturation or a shit ton of contrast. as opposed to taking a picture of something on, let's say, a branch, because I myself have fallen victim to thinking that I found one of the most beautiful geckos in the world. I bought it, and it turns out that they had heavily doctored the photo, and you couldn't tell because it was just on a piece of wood and it wasn't on somebody's hand. So let's go ahead and get out some geckos and take pictures of them. It's a super complicated strategy, but you guys will be able to follow along, I'm sure of it. Who should we grab? Probably my monochrome, because everyone likes to see that. So now we have Amon, my, where is he? There we go. So now we have Amon. He is my monochrome breeder. I love monochrome. Everyone asks me to get more into it, but I can't because we're still discovering things about it, and the Gecko Gen gets mad if I say things that are slightly wrong. I'm not a scientist. Everyone, please stop adding me. What we do is, you know, you turn on your thing. I used to have a vertical grip, but it started to hurt my nerves. I have nerve damage. I'm getting surgery for it. But I use this so that I don't have to hold it. And I usually do all of my photos vertical because you want to be able to upload onto Instagram at 4:5 ratio, because that's going to give you the best reach. It's a whole different topic, but you want to shoot vertical. Just shoot vertical. So there's a lot of different ways. You could just grab a gecko like this, you know, and then you have that autofocus and you take a picture of it. Now you have to take into consideration the positioning that you want your gecko to be in. What I do is I do a little bit of a twisty turny like that, and then I get them to turn their head just like this. Then you can get a better idea of their head structure. It's just a more pleasing image. So you got to do like this, because they're like chickens and their heads will follow like that. So now that's the perfect angle for a gecko, from what I've found. And usually I'll even put like 2 to 3 geckos on me, and I'll stand here and just photograph them left and right. And they just chill on my shoulders. So again, we're going to do this turning maneuver. We're going to get our camera ready and pull focus on them. And then, no, they're not doing it. He wants to turn this way. You just got to start learning how to read your gecko's body language. So right there, that's a good photo. Now we can see the structure on his back with his scales, and we can see his head structure. Got him turning into another direction right now, and then we can just move our hand in a certain way to get him to align. No, he moved. There we go. So it's very difficult to photograph like this, but I feel that if you take the extra time and effort to photograph them like this, other people aren't going to be willing to do that. So it will help you stand out. There's a lot of people getting into the crested gecko hobby now, so you might as well find a way to stand out, you know what I mean? Something like this is a really good way to show off head structure. So there you go. That's photographing an adult, and usually they're jumping around a lot. But I work with Amon a lot because he's kind of like the representative of the company. So let me go ahead and grab out like a hatchling or something, and we'll go ahead and switch over to the 60mm macro. We have our little tiny baby. I didn't switch lenses before taking the photos, which is a rookie move, because the hatchlings are super jumpy, but you know, they can just kind of sense if you're a cool guy or not. I found that a lot of my geckos have gotten a lot calmer with me over the years, like even if they're freshly hatched. But anyway, so hatchling photography, a lot of people will just put them onto a napkin or a paper towel and take pictures of them. I still like to use the hand strategy because no one else will. So, you know, I just try to find ways that I can stand out from the competition. And it's exactly the same strategy. Get them to kind of be in a certain position and take a picture. Once you become a professional gecko wrangler like myself, it becomes second nature. It's another thing to remember that you got to have a lot of patience when you're doing photos with geckos, because they have a mind of their own. They are their own beings, and it is not like product photography. We've now taken pictures of adults and we've taken pictures of babies. So again, guys, the main takeaway here is to think outside of the box. Don't do what all the competition is doing. You need to have a real quality camera, and you need to have good lighting. Another way that you could actually spend $0 and still have really good lighting is go next to a window or next to one of your sliding doors or something. As long as the natural sunlight is coming in through a window, as long as you're sideways to it, so like here's the window, or I guess here's the window and here's your gecko in your hand or whatever. So like here's the window, here's the gecko. As long as you have some sort of side lighting or top down lighting, it's going to give you the best amount of like this good contrast and soft lighting. And that's really what you want. You want contrast and soft lighting. You don't want to just use some sort of light box like everybody else and their brother does. It's super overused and it's kind of boring. You want people to attach to something. And so for me, my whole branding and everything is, you know, taking pictures of them fluidly moving on my hand so that you can see the color and the rendition and all that stuff that I already talked about. So anyway, thank you guys for watching today's video. If you guys want to see more like this, go ahead and comment more video ideas down below. This is how I take the best quality pictures of my geckos. If you guys have any recommendations or you have your own specific strategies, leave it down below. All that other YouTube mumbo jumbo, and I'll see you in the next one.